welcome to this beautiful Wednesday morning here on Osrc television. It's AM today and welcoming you on the program where we look into the issues on current affairs and trending issues across the country, and we bring resource persons to make informed opinions and decisions on them. My name is Flora Iwanya. Let's quickly take a look at stories making the headlines in our national dailies here in Nigeria, and we will be starting this morning from the Daily Independent newspaper, where we have NCAA to review minimum 6 aircraft for intending airlines. And with this, rider stakeholders advise regulator on how to stimulate aviation growth. We kept records, expecting to be held accountable. That's coming from former President Buhari. Says under his watch, nothing was done under secrecy. He's telling Nigerians that his administration was very transparent. We also have Shell to sell its Nigerian onshore oil gas business for $1.3 billion. And we have other stories here. IGP asks DIG to coordinate upscaled security strategies across the nation. Afenifere identifies state police restructuring as panacea to insecurity. Wike summons emergency meeting over worsening insecurity in the FCT. You recall in some days ago, we've been hearing stories coming from Abuja and insecurity, where some kidnappers kidnapped even a family and some other travelers, demanding some specific huge amount of money. And at the end of the day, the ones delaying to pay these monies are being killed one by one. Then people wonder, what is the government doing to provide security to the country, provide security for its citizens, and even allow the citizens to sleep with their eyes closed? Now we are being told that the FCT minister has summoned an emergency meeting regarding insecurity in Abuja, and it is worrisome, and we're expecting that at the end of the day, something positive will be heard in that regard. Then we also have fiscal federalism, restructuring important for good governance. That's coming from Governor Seyi Makinde. We also have 2024 Guba poll. APC, Edo stakeholders agree on direct primaries, rule out zoning. I'll stamp out vestiges of Boko Haram, kidnappers, others. President Tinubu is assuring Nigerians, saying Buhari assumed office at very difficult period. We will continue to work from where he stopped. If you want detail of these stories and more, you get them on the Daily Independent newspaper of this morning. Then moving on to the Vanguard newspaper, where we have Tinubu Wike rise against insecurity, vow renewed action. That story is on page 5 of the Vanguard newspaper. We also have buildings destroyed as explosion rocks parts of Ibadan. Now, the Oyo State Governor Seyi Makinde is telling Nigerians that the cause of that explosion was coming from an illegal factory somewhere around that Bodija area. So if you want to get detail of that story, you can also check page 8 of the Vanguard newspaper. Then we have palliative funds. There is plot to link Baja. That's coming from a source. Supreme Court judgment. Don't throw Nasarawa into crisis. That's coming from the APC. Federal government building fiscal resilience to reduce foreign borrowing. It's coming from the finance minister. I prepared myself for probe. That's coming from former President Buhari. We've looked at that story up earlier. 83 illegal refineries uncovered in 1 week. NNPC should have privatized refineries before rehabilitation. That's coming from Atiku Abubakar. And on sports, AFCON 2023. Nigerians should keep supporting us. Trust Ekong begs. Now, it's a collective responsibility of all Nigerians to support our own, the Super Eagles, during this AFCON, because with our support, I'm sure they will even excel, knowing that the country back home, everybody's cheering and cheering for them at the same time. All right, let's quickly move on to the Daily Trust newspaper. Residents fear dead. Buildings destroyed as explosion rocks Ibadan. Supreme Court reserves judgment in Nasarawa Kebbi governorship disputes. Despite multi-billion naira complex, NSA's office commits 32 billion naira to new building. It is misplacement of priorities that's coming from CSOs and experts. Insecurity, bandits abduct 17 in Niger State. And we have these writers with the story. It says, Tinubu summons service chiefs. Federal government seeks France's help. IGP deploys DIGs in Abuja. Security agents have gone to sleep. Senator Kingibe. Now that's a big question. Are they sleeping? Or should we expect more? Because in the course of the inauguration of this administration, or rather after the inauguration, the president met with the service chiefs and they promised that the country will see something different, a turnaround in our security challenges. But at this point, the question really is, are they sleeping? But I'm sure in the coming days we'll get to understand what exactly is happening across the northern part, the northeast, even the southeast of the country. And moving on, we have the leadership newspaper, where we have this coming from the United States. Trump sweeps Iowa caucus ahead of 2024 race. 80 rescued, 12 confirmed dead in Niger boat mishap. Cancel domestic crude oil allocation to ease forex supply, Agora policy. Kidnappings. Tinubu, Wike service chiefs brainstorm on crisis. The detail is on page 4 of the leadership newspaper. Explosion causes pandemonium in Ibadan. AFCON. Namibia stun Tunisia 1-0. Burkina Faso beat Mauritania. These and more are what you will get on the leadership newspaper of this morning. And moving on to the Nigeria Tribune. Why I didn't sack Emefiele, Buhari defends Nigeria redesign policy. You get that on page 4 of the Nigeria Tribune. Like Buhari, I have adopted policy of non-interference. That's coming from President Bola Tinubu. Plateau attacks, Middle Belt, Southern leaders advocate state policing. Now we've had calls for state policing so many times across the country because there is this feeling that if we have police in our grassroots, people that speak the same language, people that can go into the hinterland where they believe there will be a level of understanding between them and the people, that the country will experience something good. But on the other side, people are wondering, why do we need state policing? Now, details of this and more, if you want to get the detail, down the Tribune, Nigeria Tribune newspaper. APC adopts direct primaries for Edo Gubapo. Edo APC chairman resigns. And we also have this fiscal federalism, restructuring important for good governance. Now moving on to the New Telegraph, where we have pandemonium as massive explosion rocks Ibadan. All right, we already looked at some of these stories here, but we have this one, Nigeria facing reputation deficit. That's coming from the federal government. Yes, when we even talk about reputation deficit now, when you travel outside Nigeria and you say, I am in Nigeria, people will have to look at you twice before wanting to have a conversation, a business dealing, whatever kind of relationship with you. Because sometimes we've ended up creating a bad image of the country to the outside world. We talk about internet fraud. We talk about even marriage scam these days. People have to lure someone from outside the country to Nigeria, all in the name of, I love you, I want to spend the rest of my life with you. But you get to realize that all this is practically because of money or something. So Nigerians have ended up, some Nigerians rather, have ended up creating a bad image for the country. But there is still time for a change, and I'm hoping that we will get that change, because the president is also trying as much as he can to make sure that the youths are well employed, well informed, and well enlightened to know that this is not the way to go. We also have on the New Telegraph newspaper, Tinubu, why Buhari can no longer escape to Niger Republic. And we have a rider to that story. My government is transparent, accountable, says ex-president. 2023 polls confirm we are Nigeria's alternative political party. That's coming from the Labour Party. Nigeria's alternative political party. Wow, well, I'm sure we'll get, well, if you want to understand what the Labour Party national chairman meant by that, that's what he said. You get the details on page 9 of the New Telegraph newspaper. Then quickly, let's take a look at the blueprint. Insecurity still. We will wipe out every agent of darkness, Tinubu tells Nigerians. Now, that's a strong assurance when it's coming from the president saying we will wipe out, we will keep the country clean from insecurity. Here in Ondo State, we are enjoying relative peace because our police, then our Moteco Corps, they are doing a lot, and you get to realize that the moment issues are reported at some point, they take it up. And people end up sleeping with their two eyes closed. So we're expecting the same thing from the national angle. Let Nigerians sleep and breathe, hoping that something good will come out of all of this. Now, Nigeria gets $14 million grant for polio eradication. That's a good one. You get that story on page 7 of the Blueprint newspaper. Supreme Court reserves judgment in Kebbi Nasarawa governorship disputes. Edo 2024 still. APC settles for direct primary, rules out zoning. Ganduje Oshomole vow to neutralize PDP and reclaim state. Settle host communities before divesting, activists tell Shell. Bulls runs riots as equity market gains 1.823 trillion naira. That's coming from the business settings. WHO launches 1.5 billion US dollars appeal for key emergencies in 2024. Detail of all that you get on the Blueprint newspaper. Now, moving on, we also have some national dailies where we were looking at, okay, we have the Punch newspaper. And on the Punch newspaper this morning, abduction epidemic, anti-kidnapping protests holds in Abuja today as 10 suspects arrested. Tinubu vows to crack down on kidnappers, agents of darkness, abductors kill hotel barman. Federal government saves 8 trillion naira from subsidy removal, forex reform, Tinubu panel. Detail on page 20 of the Punch newspaper. Refinery, Dangote investors gain 1.2 trillion naira. Naira plunges to 1,300 per dollar at parallel markets. Well, is that a good thing? Our business analysts will have to understand, or rather will have to explain more what will happen in the coming days, because if the naira at this point, 1,300 naira is equaling just a dollar. I don't know where we are going, but in the coming days, let's hope something different happens. Well, all that detail you get on the Punch newspaper. Then let's really take a look at the Nation newspaper, where we have EFCC quizzes AGF in humanitarian ministry probe. President raises red alert over rising banditry and kidnapping. Buhari, why I didn't fire Emefiele. Declare me Nasarawa governor. PDP candidates, Ombugadu tells the Supreme Court. Torrents of tributes for BC Akonde at 85. Now, this is where we can actually give you this morning on the edition of papers today. Let's quickly take a break. When we return, the program continues. Please do stay with us.
anything that you're trying to trace, when did it start, or how did it emerge, or where did we go wrong, you have to start from the beginning. You realize that by the time we got independent and we had a structured civil service that was literally copied from the British system, people were very contented. They were specifically trained to either be secretaries, to be admin officers. Cadres are very straightforward. Technical people are doing their technicalities with the supervision and leadership of a bit of the colonial masters. And everything was fairly okay. Those early civil servants were not particularly hungry to enrich themselves. They were not greedy. And they were fairly looked after. And in those days, even when people retire, you will find that they never had anything. There are people who retire and they only depend on their pension and so on and so forth. But certainly nowadays that's not the case. The motivation, the morale boosting, the consideration of the civil servant to be looked after, I think is getting weaker and weaker. Now where we are is civil servants, there's no housing for civil servants. Yes, there are programs here and there trying to build owner-occupiers and so on and so forth, but the impact is not as strong as it used to be. There used to be vehicle loans for civil servants. I don't think that is there anymore. And the salary reviews, the disparity. Look at an NMPC worker who probably could be on the same level as somebody in the mainstream Ministry of Petroleum. The disparity of their salary, even their drivers, is very, very wide. I know of some parastatals where the lowest paid people, like drivers and so on and so forth, are earning more than assistant directors, deputy directors. So that disparity also creates some kind of hunger for doing the wrong thing. Then you start asking questions. How come does, whether it's a politician or a civil servant who is on this salary scale, has this house, has this type of cars, whose children are schooling outside, who is going into private hospital, and so on and so forth? The answer certainly would be there must be some kind of extra income somewhere. And unfortunately, most of it comes through corrupt practices. There is no way the political leadership would get away in service with any corrupt practice without the padding of the civil servant. He knows the tricks of budgeting. He knows the tricks of implementing without implementing. He knows the tricks of expenditure without spending, and so on and so on. He can be able to package reports of things that were done that has not been done. And literally, that is where the system has found itself. And unless we minimize this manual way of doing things and go digital, it will be very, very difficult to pick the people who are breaking the rule. But we also have to look at the remunerations. We have to look at the ways of life. We have to balance things. We have to do everything to ensure that people become more efficient. When you are engaged more and you are efficient, I think the tendencies to now break the law will become less. These are very simple things if we are prepared to learn from others, but it becomes difficult if we just close our eyes and close our ears. And certainly COVID is showing us that you can steal if you like, you can accumulate anything you like, but there is a point when the accumulated, the stolen will not help you. It is because if your hospitals is not good and COVID hits you and you can't travel to another person's hospital, that money will not repair you. That money will not treat you.
Thank you for still staying. It's still AM today on Osrc television. Now, a few days ago, that was on Monday, the Supreme Court delivered its judgment on six states and their governors. We had Kano State, Lagos State, Zamfara State, Ebonyi State, and others. Now, many reactions have showed Supreme Court's judgment. Some people have said, why should Supreme Court always decide on who is the governor of a state? Why shouldn't be the decision of the people? And so many other reactions as well. Now on the program this morning, I have a journalist and a social commentator who will do justice to this topic this morning. He is Mr. Tayo Moses Adu. It's good to have you on the program this morning.
Thank you.
All right, let's start from interpretation. How do you interpret that whole judgment?
Well, I will interpret that judgment as an advancement of Nigerian nation, an improvement of the judicial system, an unbiased interpretation of our legal books. That's my interpretation of the judgment.
All right, let's look at the big elephant in the room that has refused to go away, which is the issue of whether the Supreme Court should decide for the people.
Well, the issue here is the Supreme Court really deciding for the people? But you see, people talk from this angle. Probably not cognizant, excuse me, not taking cognizance of the fact that if there is no Supreme Court, we will be talking about an anarchy in the polity. And when there is an anarchy, there is no peace. You can't even go about your source of livelihood. You can't go about your businesses, is it students? Of course, in a state of anarchy, there is chaos, insecurity of the highest, level. And so, when people say the Supreme Court is decided, it is when people are aggrieved because of the outcome of an election. World over, there must be a way for people, for those who are aggrieved, to express their, grievance, to challenge the decision, that has been declared legitimately, not by setting, the community, the cities, ablaze. And so the only recognized route is to go through the judicial, system. So by going to the tribunal, and when the tribunal, say, yes, this is the route, or this is the right person, this is the elected, and the other man says, no, it's your right, according to the constitution of this country.
Now, people are also looking at the issue of, or rather, ways to reduce the post-election legal battles by looking at it in a way that, why can't politicians just believe in the rule of the game? If you lose, just rest. Than deciding to, I must go to court, I must surely win this battle.
No, you see, there are 4 different types of temperaments.
All right.
We are wired differently. The way we take things are different. We have seen governorship elections that are not challenged, by the declared losers. We have seen senatorial elections that are not challenged. Who do not even believe that they lost, just look it. So I think it boils to, the individual that is involved, But every person who still feels there is a doubt over a declared, position, result, should be allowed to go through the legitimate means, not by wasting, people's lives, not by instigating, crisis in the polity. So I think I want to, give a thumb up to this idea of people having the right to go to court.
Now, looking at the role of judiciary in our democracy and the need for electoral reforms, how do you think we can upgrade in that regard?
Well, in terms of upgrading, our electoral reforms as regards, electioneering in this country, I think, of course, we are not yet, in El Dorado, but gradually we are advancing. You see that the reactions as regards these judgments of the Supreme Court on these gubernatorial positions, had been a bit, mild. I think we have had less of people crying to say, oh, they have bought, the judiciary, they have paid them dollars, they have gone, why? Because there have been no interference. I wouldn't want to see any form of interference, in this election, and in this judgment. More so, you discover that it is the people, we Nigerians, we need to be disciplined. We need to restrict ourselves from, running commentaries on cases that are before competent court of, of this land, of this country, by not using derogatory words to describe what has not even been declared. And it is not, we should have the maturity that when judgment of a particular court is not going our way, we should not now call to bring the roof down because it is not favoring us. Meanwhile, when it is favorable to us, it is that we begin to praise the system. Oh, the judiciary, oh, they are the last hope of the common man. They are this. That time you have the very quality, positive adjectives to describe, the respected jurist. You describe them very well. But when it's not going your way, not looking at even the technicality or looking at the law books as to can this even stand the test of time, before the court, any reasonable judge will not just, go out and give a verdict without being able to defend it or without looking at the pro and con of the entire, entirety. But now, I think as a suggestion, I would think we should look at our law, our laws in this country, whereby when an elected officer is elected, after an election, the time for trials, the time for adjugation, the time for that these cases will take should be limited. It should be restricted. Let's say if it's possible, maximally maybe 5 months. Rather than although that has improved, it is not what it used to be. We have seen where people who were sub are spent over 3 years in office, or almost 3 years in office before the court finally gives judgment to say, oh, you have to quit. You are not the one that won the election. So you get it. And so today it's not as long as that. But I think we can still do better. Maybe we bring it to 3-5 months, or maximally maybe 6 months. So that we don't just waste people's time unnecessarily.
All right, let's look at Kano State, where the court judgment favored Abba Yusuf. Now, if you watch the video, there was this excitement on the streets of Kano. Then someone said, imagine if they did not declare this man the winner.
No,
what would have happened? And I said, what were you expecting to happen? Nigerians, my question is basically, and do you think Nigerians are growing in the angle of accepting election judgments?
Yes, I think we are improving. And that's why you will see that most of the people, if not all, that lost from the Supreme Court pronouncement, I am yet to see where any of them have been saying, no, have been robbed, like it was done during the presidential, judgment. Where some people were saying, no, they have compromised. Although we can't go anywhere again, but we know there has been a broad day, whatever. You're not seeing this, as regards the state gubernatorial, judgment of the Supreme Court. And again, as regards Kano, I want to tell you, let's flash back to our, now rested, late governor, the former governor of Ondo State, Arakunrin Oluwarotimi Akeredolu. He won his election. It was challenged at the court. The PDP governorship candidate lost the election. There were jubilations when Akeredolu was declared the governor of Ondo State. Now, I ask you, if it were to be Eyita Ojegede of the PDP that was declared the governor of Ondo State, are you saying there wouldn't have been jubilation? People would have jubilated. So there are two sides to a coin. So in Kano too, if the APC candidate had been declared by the Supreme Court, of course the APC structures in Kano would have went wide. And the people, there are some people that are in the masses. They are just how to move with the trend. So you would have seen them, and you will see a lot of red caps. Why that jubilation was going on, why it was moving in, which means there have been mobilization by the party. And red cap signifies, the Kwakwansia movement, yes. Which is the leader, of Haba. Because Haba was commissioner for finance under, Kwakwanso's government in Kano State. So it was just a natural expression of support for their candidate who had won.
Now, let's move away from the Supreme Court. Let's look at, recently, we heard of the merger, the agreed merger between the PDP, the Labour Party, and the NNPP. Then the question now is why? Because many people would have expected that merger before the presidential election. And people were saying, okay, if this merger happens, this election, this group would definitely win this election. Then at the end of the day, the merger did not happen. Now that is happening, are you expecting any change?
No, they realized their failures. They realized they are foolish. They realized that, this one is ahead of us. It's a confirmation of defeat. It's an acceptance, of supremacy of the man who defeated them at the poll. They now realize that, independently, we cannot challenge this man, and win against him. And probably that's why, they use all sort of, falsified narratives, in particular, the Labour Party, against the person, of Asiwaju Bola Ahmed Tinubu as, an aspirant and as a candidate, even of the party. You remember, I was reading on the social media last night, and somebody was saying, somebody, from diaspora was saying his hands are not shaking again. There are no bala blue, in his speech again. You understand? But then, it was painted as if accurately, that was the reality of what was happening to, now our president. You understand? So, they realized this. But I want to tell you that the so-called merger you are making reference to, is a tissue of paper before me, because you could see that already it has failed from the beginning.
Now, let's look at Lagos State.
Did you get what I just said?
I
it has failed from the beginning. Because who will fly the ticket will be what will scatter that merger.
That I was looking at that because before the presidential election, the merger was who will steal. And the three leading candidates of the three political parties were insistent on, we are going to be the people. So that's why I was asking, I don't know. But
it won't work, because if you look at Alhaji Atiku, he's elderly. He's, the oldest of the three, leading, within the three leading, candidates of these three different political parties. And you realize that he's seeing it as a life ambition. So if there's going to be a suggestion of somebody else apart from him, I tell you, he's not going to fly. And Obi wants to come up with, in the cloak of someone who is different from the already known Nigerian politician. I know they give shishi. That's why they went to court without having party agents from different, across the country. And they want to go to court and go and defend, they want to go and testify that, the result of that place is not there. And they couldn't do it. You understand? It takes mobilization. It takes beyond rhetorics. It goes beyond the social media, sensitization to win, an election in a complex, country like Nigeria. Because there are so many, Nigerians who are, who are conscious of their electoral rights. You understand? And yet they are not even on social media.
All right, let's look at one of the issues in Lagos State. The Labour Party candidate in the election, Gbadebo Survivor, had in his appeal claimed that Sanwo-Olu's running mate, that's Obafemi Hamzat, had renounced his citizenship as a Nigerian. Now, the court held that he is Nigerian by birth, adding that renunciation of citizenship of a citizen by birth must be registered by the Nigerian president. So does it mean that it was not registered, that he just said it?
You see, do we even have proof that he said it? Then even if he said it, let's say at the point of, I find myself I'm in Ukraine or Russia now, a war-torn environment. And at the point of, being killed, I'm just painting that scenario. And they ask me, and they say, oh, are you a Nigerian? You understand? If you see any Nigerian, just kill them, except they are ready to renounce their country. And if at that point, and I know that my country does not have, as at that time, does not have, things in place to come to my rescue at that, point, wouldn't I be stupid to still say, oh, I cannot renounce? So what if in such situation, the man had renounced and said, and even what if, at a particular point in time, maybe as a student, to get some benefits, from, the residing country, they probably that is, what do you call it, that's something, that will make his journey, easy. And he has not documented, this. And if you now go to court and say, oh, he said, you can't even prove it. The court is not for that Christmas. They will look at your papers, the document, what has been argued, what has been substantiated. That's what they give their judgment on. So, and it will be difficult for Vivor, I'm sorry, to have won election in Lagos State.
But he didn't do badly, really.
Well, he didn't do badly. Well, I don't know what you mean by he didn't do badly. But they only swear in, someone who won election. That you came second in an election does not mean when you have that election again, you come second. You get it?
All right, let's look at this issue of the over 165 invalid votes in Kano. Now, there is the Supreme Court ordered that all the ballot papers from which the appellant votes were deducted should be restored to the governor. I want to understand that.
I can't interpret it either. You understand? But that is the judgment of the Supreme Court. And
because I want to know who deducted.
No, the court.
Okay.
It was a previous, judgment.
Yes.
You understand?
Yeah,
So, but they are coming to correct whatever is perceived to have been, probably done wrong. That's the essence of, oh, appeal court has taken a decision. I'm not satisfied. I'm going to Supreme. So when people say, why should it be the court that would determine, that will choose for us our leaders? No, the court has not chosen our leaders. You understand? It is the people that have chosen our leaders. It is the vote of some people that has been restored. So the court only assisted the people so that they are not shortchanged.
All right, let's move away from Supreme Court. Let's go to River State. The drama in River State has been something else between Nyesom Wike and Fubara. Now, but before I ask that question, I'm wondering, is Nyesom Wike still a member of the PDP?
Well, I think Nyesom Wike has, as at today, has not officially declared to be a party member of APC. And I'm here to read his resignation letter from PDP. And I'm sure if he's leaving PDP, Nyesom Wike is going to make it official. I would have expected, okay, let me construct it that way. I would expect somebody of his status to make it, official.
Because these days we see him campaign for the APC. He speaks a lot about the APC. Then people will wonder, are these not anti-party activities? Then even when he says things, he will say, tell them to sue me. And I'm wondering.
You see, maybe I want to see his case from the case of a man who is in a boat, who is ready to rock the boat. Because he felt the people in the boat actually betrayed him. That's the point the angle. You see, you remember the 5, governors before the presidential election. You understand? These people, Nyesom Wike said they had agreed, and we knew. And, our, now, former governor, late, Akeredolu, was in the forefront as well, the Southern, Governors Forum, they were saying the presidential, position should move, back to the South. You understand? They were not mincing, words. So when the PDP, decided to pick, their candidate from the North, I think that was their own doing. And he saw that and felt, that is not part of, our agreement. And they didn't hide it, the 5 governors. So if PDP were strong enough, they should have been bold enough to have expelled the 5 governors. You understand? But because they knew that if they had done that, it would have been, of course, it would have been a double jeopardy, for them. And I felt that was why, they couldn't go ahead. So today, and I'm aware Wike, notified the PDP for, about its appointment, as if, FCT minister, in Nigeria. So I don't know.
All right, looking at the issue between him and Simi Fubara, the godfather and godson drama. Now, it started with some heavy fighting and demolishing the state assembly, and the assembly having factions and presenting the budget to just 2 members or 3 members, and eventually the president intervened, and at the end of the day, we're where we are now. How have you been viewing this issue? Is it because some people are looking at it, because even from what Wike said, he said he does not like ungrateful people. Now from Simi Fubara's angle, it's coming like he's trying to make me do what I shouldn't do, what is not right, what will affect the lives of the citizens. And if you agree with me, this is what happens most of the time between godfathers and their godsons. At the end of the one is always saying the other one is ungrateful. Then the other one will say, oh, he wants me to carry out the state funds and give him. What's your reaction to all that?
Well, personally, I don't like people who are ungrateful. I hate backstabbers. I am not comfortable with people who speak with double mouths. You understand? And looking at the case of Rivers, I think it's too early for these heavy disagreements to have happened. But I want to believe the 2 of them might not have opened up to let us, to let the world really know exactly what, was wrong. Because some people, were on the social media saying the FCT minister was asking for, is it third portion of the allocation of River State. The man had denied that. For what now? That why would he be asking that? He's not asking for money. He's, and one thing I've realized is that the man, when he was, responding, he said he had every privilege to have picked the governorship from the governorship candidate of his party from from somewhere else, but because he wanted the peace and unity of Rivers, he decided to go to where it's been very difficult for them to produce a governor. And if Fubara, I'm sorry, if you look at Fubara, his history, where he has been in the past 8 years, thereabout, you will agree that God used Wike to make him. It's not just about he didn't pay, he wasn't the one that paid for the form, everything about the gubernatorial, that man sticked his neck.
But have you looked at the possibility of politicians sitting down and crossing I's, T's and dotting I's, signing contracts, we can call it signing a deal. Now, for instance, this same issue, we experienced it in Anambra State at some point when Obiano came in and said Peter Obi asked him to be giving him 50 billion naira monthly, and it became a problem. Now, is it not possible that this issue of godfatherism, if it has to happen, there should be an agreement? Not at the end of the day, one person reneges on the agreement and starts making the other person look bad. Then the other person keeps tagging the ungrateful people.
The question I ask is, 5 years ago, 8 years ago, did Fubara has an ambition to be a governor in Rivers State? Does he have what it takes to have contested a governorship election without his support, without external support? Would he have won the ticket of his party? There's this man, former PDP chairman at OB. Is it OB or OB? The man was interested in that governorship. And the minister said he had to tell him that, please, you have to forget your ambition. And on the altar of loyalty, you understand? Not because Fubara is better than that person, but just because, it's just like now in Ondo State. Everyone, are looking up to the next governorship position coming from Ondo South. You understand? So he could have, because of his influence, so-called, and say, okay, I want to call bluff of the people of the South, either through manipulation or whatever, and try to go and pick from the North or pick from the Central. You understand? But he felt it to be an injustice. Ikere people have been, in government house, in and out to Mayor Amechi, himself. So he decided to go elsewhere. And that was where he picked, Fubara. Fubara was a civil servant. Are you getting it? So I think he has done so much. And that today, when they write the history of Rivers, they will put the name of Fubara as a former governor by the time he completes his, tenure. Is enough achievement. And I want to believe Wike is seen, or, yes, he's seen in Rivers as Mr. Performer in terms of infrastructure. He has done a lot of, I was, on my way to Akwa Ibom. I passed through, Rivers, coming back, from Iyo. I saw, a lot of infrastructural expansion and development, construction of bridges, and, the man actually, had done it, and friends who are in Port Harcourt spoke glowingly about his performance. So I find it difficult that Wike will mentor or will have a governor under him that will not be allowed to perform, in that state. So whatever is their grievances, we thank God for, the leadership quality of Asiwaju Bola Ahmed Tinubu, who's not looking at, party interest, and decided to say, okay, this is Nigeria, and peace is what we want in Nigeria. Let us, and invited the two of them and intervene. And I think since they both got back to Rivers, things have changed. Even those who have, finding the hammer of, disagreement, discord, have been trying to make sure, whatever the agreement is signed together did not hold water or is not respected. But I think Fubara has been a very gentleman, in this case, and so they've been trying to implement all those agreements. So I think it's a win-win, for everybody in Rivers.
All right, let's come back home. Here in Ondo State, the governor, Honorable Lucky Aiyedatiwa, has taken over the mantle of leadership, and there are many expectations. Many people have said government being a continuum, and owing to the fact that he and the former governor were on the same agreement, the blueprint, this is what we want to achieve. Now that he has taken over, it's expected that he continues. A few days ago, he ordered contractors to go back to the streets, to continue what they were doing and all of that. And it's actually a welcome development. But you, as a citizen of Ondo State, let's quickly set agenda for the governor. Which areas do you want him to deeply look into?
Well, His Excellency, Honorable Lucky Orimison Aiyedatiwa, a man I called a man of destiny, had been called to service with the development in the state. When he was picked as the deputy governor, I don't think anybody could have thought that he was going to be the one to be succeeding, the governor within the same, ticket. But as it pleases God, today he's not sitting as number 2. He's sitting as the number 1, person in Ondo State. I think the expectation is high. The expectation is high in the area of, security. That, you see, people call his late boss the Amotekun commander. He's expected to build on the performance of Akeredolu in the area of, security. He should go and, negotiate with the federal, government to make sure Amotekun is empowered by law to be able to carry sophisticated weapons. He should increase, the support base of Amotekun so that the security, architecture of the state can feel in every nooks and crannies of this state that yes, Ondo State is a no-go area, to criminals. And if you look at the area of infrastructure, like you said, you have confirmed. He had asked the road contractors to move back to site. And you need to go through Ondo Road, last night and see that they were working even at night around this Pentecostal church before Army Barracks, those, bar spot, in front of that filling station. You see that, they were working, over there even at night, yesterday. So which means the contract, if you need to go to Oluwatui Ichoka axis, you see that the contractors are, all of them, I think they are back, to start working. So the infrastructural, testament of their administration, should be, of course, kept in good shape, so that they will not, it will be, like you said, it is continuum. Government, and it is, in fact, it was a government that they both started, together. So there should be no reason. But I want to bring to the notice of His Excellency the issue of the payment of workers in Rufus Giwa Polytechnic. These people are suffering. They are become like professional beggars. I want to plead with His Excellency, Honorable Lucky Orimiso Ayedatiwa, to critically urgently look at the challenges of this polio people, the Rufus Giwa Polytechnic, lecturers, both non-teaching staff, teaching staff and non-teaching staff, so that they can live a good life again, so that their payment, the payment of their outstanding, salaries can be cleared. And not just them, even the teaching hospital. I am aware that there are people who are still being, probably hold outstanding salaries in teaching hospital. Some maybe 3 months, some 5 months, some 4 months. It should please help us to look into, this. And in the area of education, you understand, that we should not just be duplicating, establishing institutions without having enough funding to be able to, support all the institutions' subvention. Should please be promptly, released, so that things can be better. And it should be aware that there are enough of teachers, lack of enough teachers in the state today. We need teachers in both primary schools and secondary schools, so that our students, can actually be groomed and be, competent graduates, either at the elementary, secondary, or even tertiary institution. So we need, all this attention, from him. And of course, we know that he cannot just act alone. With his team, he should be determined. He should be able to, to identify, immediately that there is no luxury of time to be able to achieve, all this. And I pray that the wisdom of, that is more than that of Solomon, that the Almighty God will grant him, to act aright, to do things, anew, in the continuation of his, this administration.
Mr. Tayo Moses Adu, I must thank you profoundly for being on AM today.
Thank you so much for having me, and listeners at home, thanks for listening and viewing.
Well, this is where we birth the ship on the program this morning. Do join us again on Friday for another wonderful edition. My name is Flora Iwanya, wishing you the best of the day.